team. Welcome to episode 138 of Transition Talk, where we talk about dental transitions and how to navigate the sometimes messy path to practice ownership. So you've officially sold your dental practice. The papers have been signed, the new owner is getting acclimated in the practice, and you are ready to sail into retirement. But what happens next? How can you ensure that you're financially ready for the chapter? How do you know that your life is ready? And this episode will dive into topics like taxes, budgeting in retirement, what to do with your business entity, real estate, what does the work back look like, taxes. We've got a full show for you. But before we do that, Mr. Loretto, hello.
Christy Ratcliffe. So good to see you.
I know, it's been so long.
Well, long for the recording, but we got to hang out all weekend.
We did actually get some good FaceTime.
Yeah, and we hung out. It was Scottsdale.
It was raining, though. Yeah. But it was Scottsdale.
We had a margarita together.
That's true.
That's all that
That's
matters.
True.
That's
all
true.
That matters.
I think about this episode, and I think about all the emotions that are involved.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Your life's work, and somebody else is in charge, and now you don't make the money you make anymore. And, there's just so much from both the buyer and the seller, but it's primarily the seller. It's kind of their life's...
There's a lot of emotion.
Yeah, life's work, So this will be fun to talk about. And this title, I like it, The Next Chapter. And being this 57-year-old that I am today, not this little young girl like you are, that would never think about retirement. When you do something for this long, you kind of think about it a little bit more and more. And it's just this weird thing. Your kids get out of the house, you're in a better financial situation, and for whatever reason, you kind of go through these little bit of lulls of just like, do I still have it? Am I still the driver that I was once before? And so I get it. I know when I'm talking to a 60-year-old dentist that's been doing it for 30 years and they're like, I'm done and I'm ready. Because they've already envisioned what that perhaps next chapter looks like. I haven't figured that out yet. For me, I still love what I do, so passionate about it. But, I'm just being honest. There's certain days I'm like, okay, maybe. But I'm not yet to that point, But it's fun to think about and kind of fantasize about and what would your life be. And so I think that's going to be important for us to focus on today to help with the listener today that no matter what stage they're in, either they have just closed and they're like, oh God, this guy is speaking to me, this gal's speaking to me, or the listener that is kind of on the cusp and wants to hear kind of what one of the episodes I know we had closing time. What's closing time look like for me as I transition this practice? So this will be fun. I'm excited. What's your kind of next chapter? What do you think about? I know you have it. You spent some time at the lake house. The girls are getting bigger, and we've got one about ready to drive. But what do you kind of see these next few years just for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think that I ever see myself not working. And I knew this when I went on maternity leave. Like I went on maternity leave and I was like, okay, I want flexibility and I want to be able to stay home, randomly, but maybe a 4-day work week or 3-day work week. I could see myself scaling down. Currently though, that's so far in the future. But I feel like we're just hitting kind of a new stride in our family, right? We went out to dinner last night for our anniversary and both girls stayed home and they one put the other to bed. I paid a really reduced rate for babysitting. I just kind of have more flexibility with them getting older, more responsibility, more emotion, more kind of staying up late, making sure they get where they're going and tracking phones and, all the things you have gone through over and over, which is stressful in itself. A whole nother job exists with that. But it feels good. It feels like we've kind of move past.
The thing is that you said there, I think that we can both resonate with, and I know the listener can, is when you've done something for, call it 20 plus years, you still love it. It's just you might enjoy certain parts of your work a little differently than others.
Yeah.
And I think when you said the 3-day thing, that is exactly what we want to try to do, building a financial plan for a doctor to do the procedures that you can do, and then allow them to kind of continue this growth in practice and growth in life. Very fortunate, Roxanne and I just came back from a 2-week trip to Italy, which is amazing. But the one thing that really resonated with me was, and this is really weird to say, but I was ready to come home. And this fantasy that we all have about travel and Europe, it's just built up in our little Facebook and Instagram, just daily nonstop, that this is going to make people happy. And it was an amazing trip, but I'm ready to come home.
Yeah.
And for me to think, when I retire, I'm just going to go travel. I'm not, no.
You don't change who you are when you retire, right?
No.
It takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
No, I'd say that all the time. If I won the lottery, I would not stop working, but it would certainly change my mindset about what I spend my time on, right? And like kind of what you worry about versus not worry about. Because again, at the end of the day, if you love what you do, which I think a lot of people that we work with love what they do, but then they kind of just want something back, right? Like I always say time, money, control. And like at the end of the day, that's what this transition thing's about, right? Like you have to be able to give up one or the other because unlimited amounts of all three of those things aren't normally go together, you know?
For sure.
And so I think that when we talk to sellers, the next chapter, that when we talk about what they're going to do next, a lot of them are really happy to have like time, right? Which they've kind of not had in a while. And they've all been focused on them being the only person in control, making all the decisions, the financing, you know, kind of their life and their family's life and their staff's life. And so being able to kind of step back and be like, what do I want to do? I actually think that's a really hard question that most of our clients really struggle with. They know they're done, but I think they don't really focus on enough like what they're going to do. So I think this episode's going to be great. And I'm going to start more with like the kind of more financial aspect, I guess, because I think that's where money drives the train, even though we don't want it to. So when we talk about like budgeting and retirement, right? The financial plan, right? Which if you've listened, hopefully you know that. And if you've already sold, hopefully you did the work on the front end and knew what you needed in order to kind of retire successfully and be financially set. But what about the financial plan after they retire, right? Like it's a new way of living and a new way of budgeting.
Yeah, so hopefully in that, as you mentioned, just in your personal financial planning, you've looked at, hey, I need X millions of dollars and I have some type of dividend yield or income strategy. All this amount of money is going to hit my bank account on a monthly basis and make my lifestyle work. I think it's very important to have that budget, what it looks like post-close. And you got to remember too, as you're budgeting, you've got to add things back that you've been running through the practice. So these are all the cars, the travel, you know, the meals, the Costco stuff, the phones, all of it. Because now when you work back as a W-2, you're just not going to have that entity to run those deductions through. So these are all, they were pre-tax deductions, now they're post-tax kind of cash flow. So we've got to run that budget out. Is the house paid, insurance, you know, all this stuff, how much we're spending. Are we going to Europe every year? You know, the back of the bus, front of the bus, you know, we gifting to grandchildren, all of the things. And to make sure that we have really thought this through. Because I think that really, you know, when you see that, there's some clarity to know that number one, we're on track and we've got a plan. But there's so many other things that my experience is when we have time, we spend money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we spend a lot of money. So if you are traveling and you are just even at home, it could just be something that you're purchasing on Amazon or going up to Home Depot and buying random stuff that you just don't need because you're just there. When you work all day, you don't have time to go do those things. So this is absolutely, you know, the idea is to really understand what that budget, have a little cushion in there. And for us to also, too, to figure out kind of what that thing is you're going to do, kind of what are you going to do for 6-7 days a week if you're not, quote unquote, working back as the associate? Is it going to be an income thing that we have, or is it just going to be sit at home and drive your spouse crazy?
No. And I think that being very realistic with what you actually spend and like being very certain about that, because prior to retirement, you work some extra days and there's cash flow. But post-retirement, the money coming in is likely nothing or a lot smaller than you're probably used to. And so I think you're 100% right that the times when I spend the most money, and most people, is when we don't have anything going on to keep us busy. So now we don't have income coming in and we're spending more. I think that that's how people start to get in trouble in retirement and kind of fall short because they're not honest with themselves about what they're spending and what they will spend, and then kind of use that money in the wrong way. I can't tell you, and you've probably heard this too, how many times you're on the phone with a client and their spouse and they're talking about retirement and the spouse is like, they are going to drive me crazy.
That's right.
Or like, I also work from home, and when they're home, like it's too much. Like I have a routine of being home, and now spouse is home and they want to do something different, or, you know, so having a hobby and figuring out like, what else am I going to do with my time? Because sitting around when you haven't sat around in 30 years and you've constantly thought about your business when you're not in the chair is hard.
Yeah, and a big thing is just, I would just challenge everyone that's kind of going through this phase is to really fill in what those days look like. You know, if it's the part of this budget is you join the country club, part of this budget is you're going to be playing golf. Okay, what are those expenses on a weekly basis? You know, we're going up to the club and doing pickleball. We're going to this, all the meals. This all has to be really thought out. And you need to have kind of a 10, 15, 20% cushion on that because, again, we're going to tend to spend a lot more. So really figuring out what we're going to do with those days, I think, are so important. from maybe working back a couple of days. This is things that are going to keep us busy. I definitely do not like the 4-day-a-week cold turkey. Just go to nothing.
Yeah.
It's mentally, it's a big challenge for doctors.
That's what I was going to say. If you've been working 4 days a week or even 3 days a week, figuring out how to transition to something else. Maybe it's teaching, maybe it's working more in kind of like a charitable capacity, doing something that allows you to kind of scale back your time slowly so that you're not just going from everything to nothing. Outside of dentistry, I've talked to friends who have retired and they envisioned it to be something that it's not. And then now they need something to fill their time. And it's a weird life adjustment to being very important to not being important, quote, quote, you know what I mean? Because you've been the person in your office that everyone looks to, and now to go and be like, and now no one needs me. That's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I get to be in charge at work. I'm not in charge when I go home. So I literally would never be in charge.
I'm out of control in both places. So it doesn't matter.
It's just like this is... You're winning from this point forward, so you're good. I think one thing else we want to touch on here is when you do work back, that you can work back, as the associate. I think be mentally prepared, again, for that lesser income number. The person's obviously not going to be in charge. That's really hard to watch somebody else kind of run the ship. You may think, and it sounds magical, that someone else is going to do it, but to actually not lead, it's hard. So just be mentally prepared. 2 is we'll have that ability to be paid as a W-2 or as an independent contractor. And so if you are paid as the W-2, again, we want to budget for that. How many days are you expected to work back in the practice? What percent? What amount of production do we think? And now we can budget, you're going to make 100, 200,000 working back as the associate. And then if we are going to go back as the straight associate as the W-2, then we would probably shut down the corporation. Well, there's not really a need unless you have some other outside income that we're not discussing here today that would funnel through that to keep that entity open. So in that example, you would shut down your corporation. If it's a situation where you sell in post-close, maybe there's a couple $100,000 of income because you're working 3 to 4 days a week, it's a busy practice, and that person is now paying you a couple $100,000, then there's probably a strategy by leaving the entity open, getting paid 1099, and then establishing some income out of that, as well as keeping some of those tax deductions for you, kind of post-close. So that will kind of help with this addressing of the budgeting that we can forecast on, and then address a little bit of some of those tax decisions by keeping that entity open. Also kind of addresses kind of when to shut that corporation down, which would be dependent on if we remain W-2 or IC.
Yeah, and also the timing of those things, the timing of when you closed on the practice, when you sold your practice, became shifted from owner to employee, if that's the route you took, matters as far as when you close that entity, right? So if you're closing you sold your practice in June or July, more than likely you're going to want to keep that entity open at least for the rest of the year, depending on retirement, and kind of all those components. A lot of financial advisors will tell you to keep it open at least through the end of that year and then close it so that way you don't have kind of partial yield return. So important thing there is really when am I closing? What does that do from an entity standpoint, retirement, pension plan, and talking to your team to make sure that you're maximizing the timing of a transition, because it really can impact taxes as well, right? If you think about this, if I close in June, my taxes are due the next April. If I close in January, then I have an entire year before those taxes are due. Still need a budget for them, still need to make sure you set aside money for them. But from a cash flow perspective, you do have a little bit more flexibility if you time that closing in the right way.
Yeah. One thing I want us to really talk about when you close is just the preparation for taxes. And so we'll use kind of a high-level example here. The practice sold for $1 million. Maybe the practice was doing $1.2 million, valued at $1 million. And one thing I would say for the listener who is not yet closed, but is listening, that there are some really good planning opportunities for you. It's really cool. If I know in 1 or 2 years in advance I'm going to receive $1 million, then I've got several years to prepare for that. And there's lots of different creative tax planning strategies. If you're listening and you're in this window of 3, 4, 5 years and your accountant or financial advisor is not bringing up tax planning strategies now for the event that's going to happen 1, 2, 3 years, 4 years from now, I'd feel uncomfortable. And certainly the Keen Waters arm is certainly somebody that can navigate this, because there's one thing for certain, the $1 million is coming. The one thing for certain is at least the majority of that's going to be capital gains of 20%. You got some ordinary income. So I would estimate anywhere between $250,000, $275,000 of real taxes are going to be due at that given year. Now, what's really, really cool is if you know the event is coming, you just know it. It's like you've got somebody you're courting, they're a family member maybe, a GPR residence coming in, it's a 2-year pathway, everything's lined up for them to buy in. we really do have that leeway to plan. And so capital gains is actually something that we can address today and build up capital gain losses over the next couple of years to offset that capital gain that we have in the foreseeable future that we can identify. And so that's the use of what we call tax loss harvesting. And so it's a creative tax planning strategy that allows us to invest in an index type fund and just strategize on the timing of when those losses take place in that index. And we create these losses, and that loss just basically gets to build. And so can you imagine like creating losses in an investment portfolio that's still getting really good returns, but now all of a sudden we can utilize that, maybe it's $200,000, $300,000 of losses, and in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever the number is, we get a gain of $1 million, we get to offset that. It's so creative. And very, very fortunate that we're a part of a team that has strategies like that can help us individually as small business owners like us, Christy, as well as all the 3,500 dentists, small business owners that we work with that know when these capital gains events are coming. So tax planning is just a huge part about this sale.
Yeah. Well, and the more you get to keep from your sale, right, that you're not having to pay Uncle Sam, the more you have the flexibility to do whatever your bucket list is post-transition. I would say that the clients that we have, that we probably both have had these where it's like, I'm retiring at 62 and a half, and I'm going to start talking about it when I'm 55, and I've got the plan, and I've got it all laid out, and they know what they want to do, and clearly not all goes exactly as planned, but those people I feel like are the most happy post-transition because they have had the tax planning, they have the budgeting, they have the vision of what they want, and they've really been honest with themselves about it. So I 100% agree. And I think that we don't know each and every one of your unique circumstance and tax situation and investment situation. Like you said, if your financial planner is not talking to you about it, then you need to get one that does.
Well, and we get this at least once a month where somebody just hits the site and it just says either NDP site or Keen Water site, and it just says, I just sold my practice, I need help with taxes. It's like, I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm just saying the creativity
is
like,
not there.
Man,
I wish you would have just reached out a little bit before.
The creativity is just not there. Just all tax planning is just not equal. There is definitely some creative, intuitive types of questions that we need to be thinking about before and after the close. It's like, I think ChatGPT is amazing. It spits out answers, but the reality is it spits out a much better answer the more you feed it.
Yeah.
It's the same for financial planning and tax planning. The more information that could be gathered, the better the answer is going to be. If the accountant is not asking the millions of questions and understand the difference between a building, depreciation schedule, and furniture fixtures, and build out all the things, they're not asking. They don't know that you're engaged. They don't know you're about to. They don't know your income from this to that. They don't know you're prepaid something. They're asking questions, so they don't have the data. So in that example, it's just going to be the examples of ChatGPT gives you the wrong answer.
Yep.
If you give it a lot of information, it's amazing to see what it will spit out.
Yeah. And I think too, like, as we talk about timing and taxes, all important, but I would be remiss if we didn't say sometimes we cannot let like the tax and timing tail wag the transition, because there have definitely been times where we've had clients now, if we're talking between December 1st and January 1st or December 15th and January 1st from a timing perspective, fine. We've had clients who have found someone, right? And it wasn't the easiest task to find someone, and they want to delay a transition by 2 or 3 or 4 months in order to kind of get this better tax treatment. That is not most often worth the risk of losing that individual, right? And this doctor-to-doctor world that we are in and transition world, like timing matters a lot. And so remember what the bigger picture is and the goal, right? But again, if the more we plan, the better we can kind of time this. But if you find someone and it was hard and there's a risk that that person walks away, you're going to be in a bigger world of hurt when that person walks away because you wanted to wait an extra 2 or 3 months to close a sale because of tax treatment. So just keep that in mind as well.
I mean, 5 years ago, we went from Republican to Democrat. Everyone thought for sure that all these sales were going to go. So the capital gains was going to go away. Capital gains is for the rich. We're going to get rid of it, And you literally had thousands of dentists sell their practice to make sure that they took advantage of capital gains because
They were going to go away.
According to media, it's all going away. What happened? It hasn't changed.
We're still the same
Hasn't
situation.
changed. Same situation. They sold, now they're associate. What did they give up? It's like, yeah, we do not make decisions based on tax. Oh my God, don't even, Well, I have like $500,000 taxable income and I'm just looking for someone to help me, I don't know, with a strategy, like buy equipment. We're not buying equipment for a tax deduction, FYI.
Unless you need the equipment.
Unless you need the equipment. Exactly. If you need the equipment and we can justify the chair is going to generate this, justify the technology, that's when we make a decision that's going to benefit us, and then we have a tax strategy after that. Well, I'm just revved up from that one.
What about the building? We get a lot of questions from individuals who have sold their practice and now they want to talk about the building, or they're preparing to sell their practice and they want to know about the building. What is the advice that you would have for someone who owns both and they're going to be selling their practice? What do they do about the building?
So first, there are obviously two different financing mechanisms that are going on there. So when someone buys their practice, typically the bank is going to give them 100% financing. So again, the $1.2 million practice sold for $1 million, the buyer needs to come to the equation with maybe 60, 70 grand and say, oh, you're good. But the real estate, depending on the size of real estate, let's say the real estate's worth $1.5 million, and you want to maybe sell the building to the new buyer, they may not have anywhere between 225 to 300 grand of cash. So therefore, it's not even an option. So then we need to know who that buyer is and kind of know the real estate that you have and what the value is and what's realistic for you. You can obviously drive income and have fair market rent, which is great. Many times the sellers we work with, financial plan says, okay, if we sold the practice for this and we did this and we worked back and we had the rental income because maybe the building is paid, that works on their financial plan. So the buyer has to go, I really want to buy the building. I have the 300 grand. But I'm like, hey, but their financial plan says this, so I need you to lease from them for maybe 5 to 6, 7 years. So the buyer needs to know that, and the seller needs to know. That's a lever that they can kind of pull or push, however you want to look at it, to maybe navigate that transition. If they do sell the building, then we need to think about, too, what did we purchase the building for? What did it grow? And what are our tax implications from that? What we're going to do from investments? Or we're going to buy another piece of real estate? So that really just goes back to that financial plan. And so the financial planner should be coordinating with all the tax planning from a strategy. If we're going to give a building rental income, what type of cash are we going to get for it? What tax implications? What is our investment strategy with that amount of money? And is that amount of money with the investment strategy, is it the same from what I was getting in the real income? Is it below or above?
Yeah.
And the one thing I would just cautious the seller is, for the majority of the time, holding on the building is probably going to be your best outcome financially from a financial plan, but we can't get greed and hold on the building. And then you sold it when you're 60 and now you're 70. And 8 years later, you're 68 and you don't live in Pennsylvania, you live in Florida, and you've got grandkids and you haven't been back to Pennsylvania in 8 years. I mean, it's a mess. The buyer gives a notice that they're out. This is not a situation where you want to be in.
Yeah.
Now you're flying back. It hasn't been updated. The nice part of town's not the nice part of town anymore. It's outfitted just for a dentist. There's a dentist on every corner. So who you're selling to?
Yeah.
So it's a timing of how that building is sold, both financially, tax, and the greed you got to think about.
Yeah. And I think too, this is no different than I would say if we were talking about partnerships, right? Like you have to want to be a landlord too, right? Like the financial piece of that has to weigh, and you have to be ready to be a landlord. If you are going to be the world traveler and you're not going to be around, you're going to have to pay a management company to oversee the building so that things that are landlord's responsibility get done while you're unable to do those things. So is that part of your budget? Is that weighing into whatever rent you're getting to make sure that it's still profitable? So again, you got to want to be a landlord and you got to be thoughtful about it. At the end of the day, it's an asset and you have to do the math to figure out if it works. There's no perfect answer for everyone. It's not like you have to sell or you have to keep or you have to lease or own. It is a very unique choice for each doctor that's out there.
It's an asset. It's part of your personal financial plan. It's going to make sense for the buyer to buy this if it meets their plan, the seller to sell if it meets their plan. And you're exactly right. It's an asset when it's only worth what it's worth. And so if you sell it today because it's worth $1.5 million, then okay, we got the equity out. Otherwise, it's just this number that's on there. You may have a tenant, you may not. You want stress? Own a big asset with no tenant. It's super stressful.
Yeah.
Taxes are real, upkeep's real. You still need someone to cut the grass. You still need this and that. It's a very stressful situation. It sounds like this amazing mailbox money forever life thing to own real estate. There just needs to be a nice balance in your portfolio.
Yeah, agree. There are some admin kind of type questions we get a lot. We've answered the entity one, which is a big one of do I close or keep open my entity, the building. There are some other things to think about, right? Like you as a practicing owner, you probably have various types of insurance policies. You still probably have a malpractice policy. You probably have business liability policy. Maybe you've got disability policies. And clearly every insurance policy has its own unique factors and its its own, if you have a disability policy that will work for other types of disability, then clearly that makes sense to keep it on. But if it's only related to you being injured and not being able to do dental work, which is a real thing, then maybe you don't need that policy anymore, right? And because those premiums can be big. From a malpractice standpoint, if you have a policy that covers historical events, great. If not, then buying a tail policy so you can kind of have those things covered. Really important to do. Just other costs that you may not be thinking about that you have, accounting, the tax, storage for, maybe old patient files, like all of those things are things as you start to approach a transition, you've got to look at what exists and what do I have because I'm a business owner and because I have these responsibilities. And now how and if do those things change? And unfortunately, it is a case-by-case scenario, but having a list of those and making sure you're kind of checking the boxes. If you're going to work back, if you're going to do charity, if you're going to go teach, maybe all those policies are still necessary and to be in place, or maybe you can take them down a level. But yeah, just really important to kind of think about all of those more admin, house cleaning type of issues.
Can I just say, God bless your team to think about the million things that you just rolled through and the fact that every one of these dentists are going through a transition or coming to your team and they already have the answers to all of this. I mean, it truly is remarkable what your team does to help people execute all of that because they are so nervous and what to do and they're just like leaning on it. Our processes, not mine, Christy's processes, because she's the detail. She's created processes and checklists for all of those things you just mentioned. So I think we've got even some blogs that are out there to kind of reference this section on the administrative side that we can point to in this episode. But yeah, you can see there's a lot. So I think your team, Christy, for all of that,
they're amazing.
All of that detail to get people through. Because big picture stuff, I'm always good at. And like, oh yeah, there's all that stuff you got to figure out too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of nitty gritty stuff, right? And the team does a great job. And we'll link a couple of those blogs within the detail and description of this episode, and that way you can kind of find those. But again, just like starting a practice, just like buying a practice, you shouldn't do it alone. Big proponents of not doing the wind down process either. It takes a good financial planning team and a good transition team to make sure you're doing this correctly. We've said this before, but there's a lot of emotion that goes with this, right? It is the closing of what was a very long chapter of your professional and personal life and kind of an opening of the next chapter. And while it's exciting, it's also change is hard and change is scary. And so really kind of being thoughtful about this next chapter will put you in a much better position to enjoy it and kind of take everything you can from it. So that's all we have for today, right? Anything else?
I was just thinking about one of your clients. By the time they listen to this episode, it'll be closed and funded. But I think I'm on about 188 emails of this one particular gentleman that is selling his practice. And you can just read the emotion in every single one of his emails. He is just, I don't know how he's going to get through it. It's just, it's such a roller coaster that people go through. And so the one takeaway here on the next chapter, before you do it and post-close, is it's going to be emotional ride hang in. And it's usually about 6 months of kind of getting adjusted to kind of this new life, and either A, you'll be the happiest you've ever been, or about a year or two go by and you'll figure out how to start another practice again. Because I've seen it.
And then call us. No.
Yes.
All right, that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining us on episode 138 of Transition Talk. As always, make sure to share the transition love with those who may not know of us yet, and of course, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Until next time.
Thanks, guys.